All right, guys, over the next couple of weeks, we are going to do some elements of poetry for our writing work, and I have 5 elements of poetry that I'm going to talk to you about today, or over the next few weeks. So the first one I want to walk you through is actually something called figurative language. So you've probably heard me talk about figurative language before, and it's funny that I call it the 5 elements of poetry because really figurative language has at least 5 or 6 things we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into that, and I want to talk to you about metaphors. So metaphors are this really awesome way to describe something. So for example, it says a metaphor combines or compares 2 things and shows how they are alike or different. So here is an example. It says, he is a giant. Well, obviously somebody can't really be a giant, and so what you're doing though is you're helping the reader understand that you're talking about a person who's quite large, or is maybe larger at least than the people around them, or you just want them to seem like they're really, really big. So saying something like he is a giant, we're not necessarily going to take you literally. Instead, we're going to know that you're speaking in metaphors. Another one says, her eyes were sparklers in the night. Well, can you really have somebody's eyes be sparklers in the night? Well, no, but what it does is it helps you sort of sense that she's got this like sort of dazzle, or she's very interested, or she's really engaged in what she's doing because her eyes were kind of sparkling with that interest or intrigue that she's got going on there. So her eyes were sparklers in the night, and these are both metaphors. Now, something interesting to notice about a metaphor is you've probably also heard of that thing called a simile, because a simile is another thing we use to compare 2 things together, and we're going to talk about it in just a minute. But what I want you to notice about a metaphor is they're not using any words like or as. So instead, you're just simply stating what the thing is that it is like. Okay, so you're still comparing something together. Now, another kind of metaphor is called a personification. Personifications are really, really cool because it's giving an inanimate object a sort of like a person-like quality or characteristic. So the definition of personification says a type of metaphor where human characteristics are given to non-human things. So here's an example that they said. It says, the forest spoke to me. Well, is the forest really truly speaking to you? No, but maybe you're getting a sense of like calm coming from the forest while you stare at it, or maybe it's even the opposite. You kind of feel dread while you're staring at that forest. Even though it's not a human-like thing, you can give it human-like qualities. Mrs. Sloan is going to come teach us a lesson on poetry for Wednesday, and she's going to talk a little bit about personification. So that'll be really cool. The last one that I'm going to talk about today are similes, and I kind of already gave you a spoiler alert on these guys, but similes are another kind of metaphor. They're very special because they're still comparing things. It's just that this time they use words like or as. So here the examples say she swims like a fish, and that's using the word like to compare your person to an object that isn't human-like. So this says she swims like a fish. Well, that makes us think that she's a really, really good swimmer. Something that you could have done if this were a metaphor, you could have simply just said she was a fish. Now that's a little harder because what part of the fish is it that you're comparing? If I specifically wanted to talk about swimming, I would maybe say she swims like a fish. And then he is sly as a fox. So that's meant to be like kind of tricky or sneaky, and he's very sly like a fox. So okay, so here this one used the word like, this one used the word as. Similes are really awesome. Now again, the reason I wanted to show you some of these figurative languages, these are not something that I'm going to be asking you to specifically go do in your poetry. They're just good to know about because they sound really good, especially in poetry writing. So today, you guys are going to write an acrostic poem, and acrostic poems are really fun because they're kind of silly and easy. So I'll read to you the definition first. It says, acrostics are poems that go down and across. The poems don't have to rhyme, and they can have as many words as you like. It says you can choose any subject you like, even your own name. Highlight or make the word you choose bold in some way. So this was an example somebody gave me. It's called surfing. And so you can see that the surfing is not only bolded, but it's another color, kind of helps it stick out a little bit. And then they just used the first letter of the word to create the beginning of their sentence. So here it says surfing the waves. Undertow is dangerous, so be careful. Again, these are all about the topic of surfing. ride the waves with style, fun with friends, I never want to stop, need to take a lesson or two, and get out there and surf. So that's just kind of a fun little poem about surfing. I obviously did one for you guys, but that's about my favorite subject, which is Elliott. And so I did the same thing. I kind of used black and brown because that's his coloring, and I wrote the word Elliott down the left-hand side, and that's where I started each of my sentences. So this first sentence will start with E, the next sentence will start with L, and so on. So this says, energetic bundle of fur flying through his backyard, lovable snuggler curled up in his calming bed, listening ears that can hear you open the pantry, irresistible scent of his Frito-y paws, obsessed with tearing apart toys, treats are all he wants all the time, all the days. So what I did before I started writing it is I just sort of thought about the things that I love the most about Elliott, and once I did that I started to think about, well, I love that he runs in his backyard, I love that he curls up like in this perfect little circle in his calming bed, he is food obsessed, and he loves to tear apart toys. So once I kind of thought about that, I was able to sort of put the rest of the pieces together to create an acrostic poem. Now you guys can even just do one with your first name, and it's okay to do something like, you know, Cheryl for Cheryl, and just do one word for each. So C could stand for cool, H would stand for, I don't know. I already wrote you an example, so I can't think of another at the moment. So what your job is to do next is, it's okay if you didn't print this. If I sent you a document on Monday, so you could use that document to help you write some of these, but you can also just write this on paper laying around your house. It's no big deal. So this just reminds you up here, these are the directions for what your acrostic poem is, and then this is where you could write down your letters, and then this is where you would write down all the things about yourself. Okay? So that's the first lesson for today. I can't wait to hear your acrostic poems. Remember, one way you can share it is in your Flipgrid. Again, don't have to, but it would be really neat. Another way is you could simply just read it out loud to your families. So you could read it out loud to your family. Or the third option would be to share it at one of our Zoom meetings this week. Just let me know. Oops, I changed to eraser somehow. Just let me know that you would like to share, and I will give you the time. Good luck. Have fun.